They had to split up. Gini didn't like it, but someone needed to look after Daphne, even if Daphne didn't know she needed looking after, and if she found out would hate her for it even more than she already did. Inside her head, Gini was in charge and the responsible adult, and Dex for sure needed to regain control of Isaac, if that was even possible. Maybe Santa would help out. Did 9-year-olds still believe in Santa? Seemed like disillusion set in earlier and earlier each year. And then there was the whole, should my kids believe or shouldn't they, deal. The kids who didn't believe were always bursting the bubbles of those who did. Gini had had a classmate who didn't believe in Santa but was certain Godzilla was for real. Luckily, Daphne realized the boy was seeing her in pajamas and backed into the kitchen before Dex started his shimmy up the porch pole. Gini scrambled up the steps onto the porch, shedding snow, gave herself a big shake to complete the shedding process, and re-entered, with some caution, the kitchen. The smoke was almost gone, but she was still surprised Daphne hadn't noticed the taint of it lingering in the air. Well, make that kind of surprised. Gini closed the door and leaned against it, not sure what to do or say next. You could have warned me. Daphne tugged at her robe, then patted at her bed hair, even though everyone knew patting only worked in the movies. This was one thing Gini had forgotten about being 13, but was now sort of remembering in a distant and hazy way. This complete and utter self-absorption that sucked up the oxygen in a circumference her sister might have been able to calculate. The sheer intensity of the if it doesn't affect me, then it didn't happen, and if it does affect me, then it is life-changing and possibly the end of the world as we know it. Maybe it wasn't possible to remember that, or maybe no one wanted to remember. She considered it and decided it might not be possible to remember how it felt, if once one left it behind. There were those who never did, but then their utter self-absorption meant they didn't realize they were that self-absorbed. These never-left teens types were annoying and exhausting, so Gini tried to avoid them whenever possible. Gini hadn't planned on being landed with one, though the fact that she hadn't joined Daphne in the all-about-me zone was kind of reassuring, unless she didn't stop being 13. What would it be like to be the grown-up 13-year-old among a host of them? Would she be forced to do high school again? It was one thing to toy with the idea of doing it all over while retaining adult knowledge, but the reality of it was quite frankly horrifying. She'd been the geek before. This time it would be worse. She'd be the know-it-all geek, the adult trapped in a teen body, a social outcast before she got through the door. At least before she'd had hope. Because contemplating that was almost worse than the alien situation, Gini firmly directed her thoughts to the challenging task of briefing Daphne on this new reality. What and how much should she tell her? So, Gini began, but Daphne cut her off. Who is he? He's kind of cute-ish. The tone was snotty, but adult Gini recognized a hint of forlorn, buried really, really deep in there. Gini was out of her depth, but so was this half-child, becoming adult girl. That's Dex. She stopped, wondering if Daphne would connect the dots. She didn't have to wonder long. Oh, her gaze flicked toward the closed door. How old? Gini didn't have to think about this one. 13, a sort of sigh. Pity. A faint gleam of interest bloomed in her bored, unhappy gaze. Anyone else interesting? Older, she meant, of course. Gini shook her head. Well, other than the green aliens. They were probably old enough to date. They'd been let off their planet with a flying saucer. But as they noted, they were very small. The gaze finally settled on Gini. Another sigh. Great. Though it was clear that Daphne wasn't interested enough to ask her name, she offered it anyway. I'm Gini. No sign she remembered Gini's name either. Daphne. Oh, wow. This moment brought back some awkward memories. Okay, truthfully, that moment after the names exchange still intimidated her. The small talk to build some kind of bridge. Since Gini already knew where Daphne was from and the weather sucked toads, she took a breath and dived in. Okay, dipped a toe in. So we're kind of having a situation here. Daphne's brows in the beginning of raging out of control at the onset of puberty, arched. What's the deal? The deal? You're talking like, I don't know, like you're old or something. Gini remembered that look. You seriously didn't just say that, did you? That look hadn't gone away until after high school. Or possibly college. Yeah, Gini'd so be a social outcast if she couldn't get back to her own size. Gini searched her brain and her heart for young but young from her time. Well, it probably wouldn't work any better than old adult, and it wasn't like she could Google teen slang right now, so she gave it up as a bad job and tried for less old. The thing is, things are kind of messed up. Did messed up mean what she thought it meant? Who had time to keep up, or a reason to keep up? Well, duh, this rack is zero chill, no Wi-Fi, no bars. My friends will think I died or something worse. It's like so ratchet. Okay, she did know that ratchet was a major insult. Someone at her last con had mentioned it during a panel on writing for young teens. Maybe Gini should have let the green men vaporize her when she had the chance. I will never, ever forgive Mom or Dad. They are so dead to me. She studied Gini as if finally somewhat actually seeing her. I suppose you're related or something, so it's not OBV how loathsome everyone here is. She paused. No offense. She shrugged. Gini resisted the impulse to be honest back, found it was getting harder to care about not upsetting the little dear, or upsetting her differently. Because so far, Daphne'd been in a constant state of upset since the pickup at the airport. Okay, it sucked to expect one thing and get something, or someone else. Gini had had a lot of that lately, from the Big Chill's proposal to Dex to her mom and the aliens. Not the holiday she'd hoped for. Ho, ho, ho. Daphne's eyes suddenly narrowed and her head tipped. Perhaps she sensed an unseen adult presence. She looked to one side, then to the other. She sort of tried not to look worried. I suppose they heard? Gini nodded. It wasn't a lie. She had heard. I thought I'd hear them coming. The way this place creaks and groans like it's haunted or something. In a way it was. Gini felt like she saw ghosts everywhere, ghosts and aliens. Have you ever been in a mountain cabin before? It occurred to her that Daphne might be scared. Isaac sure hadn't blinked, so she'd kind of forgotten the girl might be a bit freaked out about the isolation, the silence, the crazy, the lack of Wi-Fi. Why would I do something so not basic? Gini sensed bravado behind the bluster. Great. Now she was back to feeling sorry for her. Daphne either sensed the sympathy or the weakness. Her eyes gleamed. Who brought you up? Maybe they could get us out of here. We're snowed in, Gini said flatly, though she tried to sound less adult. Not sure she managed it. She was what she was. Stuck. Not going anywhere anytime soon. So Dad can't get here? She added some shrill tones into the rising outrage. Zero chill. Speaking of chills, Gini looked over her shoulder at the door. She opened it a crack and stared out for a few seconds. It looked like the wind was starting to pick up again, sending the heavy flakes in at an angle. She saw green legs appear over the edge of the porch roof and abruptly shut the door, turned around, leaning against it again. Only if the wind dies down. I hate them. I hate this. I hate everything. So very 13. What about the Wi-Fi? Snow will keep that mostly offline, too. Gini braced for it. Daphne stared at her, her mouth working. Maybe she'd run out of words. Nope. Gini wondered if Biff knew his little darling knew those words. While she spewed, Gini went to the fridge, got the milk, a couple of glasses, took it all to the table and poured them both a glass. Started to sip hers, then remembered she needed to pee. Might be a good idea to take care of that before the next shock hit. She'd barely maintained containment during the last, oh my heck. Since Daphne hadn't stopped spewing, Gini went to the bathroom and shut the door between them. It was kind of a relief, both emotional and physical. Didn't want to leave when she finished. Took her time washing her hands. A sudden cessation of spewing made her speed up the drying part, but she had to brace herself and dig up some courage to open the door. She peered out. Daphne stood by the table, a half-empty glass of milk in her hand, a little milk mustache on her upper lip of her dropped jaw, staring toward the hall doorway. Not eager to move, but aware of her adult responsibility, Gini slowly eased out far enough into the kitchen to see 4, her elf hat still set at a very jaunty angle. It might even be more jaunty than their last meeting. She had the ray gun in one hand and the phone in the other. She held the phone out in Ginny's direction. For you. Not exactly thrilled, Ginny approached 4. 4 appeared to share her not thrilled. When the antenna of the phone was in reach, Ginny grabbed it. 4 let go and stepped back, as if she feared that Ginny would make a grab or leap or something equally Isaac. Both hands half raised, Ginny backed up until she bumped into the table. Only then did she lift the phone to her ear. Hey, hello? She cleared the roughness from her throat, but couldn't think of anything to add. Is this Vanessa? The tone was older, but was still a recognizable and snotty echo of Daphne's. Had to be Biff's ex. Gini nodded, her eyes on 4, who had both those big eyes, and the ray gun pointed at Ginny. Hello? Yes. She almost added that she was Vanessa, but Daphne would quickly refute that. Possibly with screaming. She looked shell-shocked, but was mercifully not shrieking. Yet. Yes, it's me, me. Hello. Van would not be thrilled at this less than stellar response, but Van should be here to take her own phone calls if she didn't want Gini making her sound like a doof. I can't get a hold of Biff. He didn't even bother to let me know he got the kids. They aren't getting my texts because of that ghastly remote place. Did he get them picked up? Are they safe? Yes, they are here. This seemed a bit sparse, but since she couldn't verify their safeness, she added, no bars up here, we're still sorting out the Wi-Fi. Is Daphne or Isaac up? I have no idea what time it is there. Isaac was probably still up on the roof, and Daphne? Gini glanced at her. She was pretty sure the kid couldn't talk yet. This phone is about out of charge, but I'll have them call you when soon. The satellite might be off for a while because of the storm, but soon. We're all fine, though. Plenty of food and such, so we're fine. 4's ray gun lifted suggestively, the platter gaze anxious. Well, have them call me ASAP. Biff's ex huffed, cutting the connection before Gini could. She pressed the end button and 4 held out her hand for the phone. Gini's hand closed convulsively around it, but she slowly made the short journey back in range and handed it over. This time her thumb made slight contact with cool, green skin. They both jumped like someone got shot. Luckily, no one did. Gini glanced back at Daphne. She'd progressed to rapid eye movement. She looked at 4. I think she's going to panic. 4 blinked. I will go to Desi. And once again, Gini was left holding the kid. Ginny watched the teen warily as she circled back to her untouched glass of milk and took a sip. It was like waiting for a train wreck to happen. She wanted to look away, couldn't. What? Daphne stopped. Is that Isaac's Christmas present? Her expression kind of cleared, color inching back into pale cheeks. He's been asking for a robot. Ginny was tempted. There wasn't a word for how tempted she was. But even a self-absorbed teen would have trouble believing her brother got 5 robots. And a Santa Claus one. Not to mention a flying saucer up on the rooftop. Her silence spoke louder than words. Color drained back out. What are they? Well, Gini sipped some more milk. I don't know that much, but I'm going with either Santa's elves or, aliens. Elves? There's more than one? This was said on a rising shriek. I've seen 5 so far. Oh, and there's the one in the Santa suit. Should she prepare her for the flying saucer, or mention the wholesale shrinking of the adults on the scene? Daphne stared at her. That guy, the one who was here last night, he's a cop, right? What's he doing? Trying to get Isaac off the roof. Gini, who had gone into this zone of truth place, considered Isaac and the roof. He's afraid Isaac will try to take the flying saucer and get shot. He got the keys to Dex's official rig and already threw this smoke thing at them. Your brother is kind of scary, but you probably know that. For just a minute, something broke the panic in the teen's face. She half nodded, but then appeared to process at least some of what Gini said. Dex? There are 2 of them? Who are you again? She asked again, this time with a huge helping of suspicious mixed with bewildered. I told you I'm Gini. We, met last night. Gini hesitated, but it felt like she was already in so deep. I picked you up at the airport last night. Daphne stared, shook her head slowly, but maybe she'd noticed enough last night to feel the truth of it. Or not. Her jaw went slack. I wasn't thrilled either. According to my mom, she asked the aliens, or the elves, to be young again, and we got the gift too. Gini nodded, though warily, was starting to see some white around her eyes now. The slackness of the jaw turned into a round circle that emitted a low moan, one that had the potential to become a full-on scream. The back door banged open, making them both jump at least a couple of feet. Dex and Isaac stood in the opening, stamping the snow off their booted feet. Daphne's eyes went from Isaac to Dex, then moved to Gini, then went back to Dex. They moved into the room, revealing right behind them a trio of green men with ray guns pointed at them. Gini saw Daphne's eyes start to roll back in the sockets and jumped forward. Hadn't expected how dead her weight would be. All she could do was slow her sink to the floor, with Gini on the uncomfortable bottom. I told you she wouldn't take it well, Isaac said matter-of-factly. Dateline. Notes from Isaac's strategic planning notebook. You'd think a cop wouldn't let the aliens get the drop on him. Dateline. From Daphne's cell phone. I'm not sure why I try. We're cut off and crazy. Or maybe I'm dreaming. I hope I'm dreaming. Dateline. Advanced Scouting Party Report. Did not believe it could go worse than last time. Should have believed. And gone to Disneyland.